Good. We're finally alone. So, have you heard anything of interest today? Did any of the passengers bear their secrets to you while they stuffed their faces?
The physician tending to Officer Brunswick is missing a bottle of laudanum.
Garrick is a hold. He forgets things all the time. I wouldn't worry about that. Anything else?
Nothing that would interest you.
I'm disappointed in you, Devon. I'd expected you to find out more than that. Well, it's getting late already, and I have a job for you. The captain is preparing himself for his late-night tea with Senator Morton in the captain's cabin. It's a friendly thing they do every other day. As you are the new steward, the captain has asked you to serve them.
Why am I suddenly the one to serve them now?
You are the steward, Devon. It is your job. Besides, you are the captain's way of showing how much he values the needs of his passengers. Now, make sure you find some way to stall for time while they discuss important matters. It is vital that they forget your presence so that you may listen long enough to discover what they are talking about. Sounds like a good plan, right?
It's a plan, but I'm not sure about it yet.
Well, you don't really have a choice. They're the captain's orders, after all. Go on then. They're waiting for you in the captain's cabin.
It is good to have you here, Mr. Morton. Now, as per your request, I have appointed one of the crew to the position of steward. I'd like you to meet Mr. Devon Rensburg. Perhaps you have noticed some of his work today?
Yes, I regret that I have.
Mr. Rensburg? Care to explain?
Weren't you pleased with my service today, Mr. Morton? I'm really sorry if I did anything wrong.
I expect a servant to be invisible at all times. Your shameful display of this afternoon made that impossible and resulted in a ghastly meal for my niece and I.
Oh, but Mr. Morton, you shouldn't blame the boy for the cook's bad taste. You know, Mr. Aubertin, he is, of somewhat lower birth. His skills, as those of his people, are limited by nature.
I don't know your cook, Cornelius. But a steward like the boy here should be able to do his job while blending in with the background.
Oh, but Mr. Morton, you should meet Undra yourself. I'm sure you would like...
Steward! Really, I thought I made myself quite clear just now. blend in.
Right. Ransberg, please fetch us some tea with a soothing splash of brandy. I keep a flask of eau de vie in the cupboard behind the stairs. Darjeeling with a drop of liquor should surely lighten the mood somewhat. My apologies. It really is all very new to him. Now, what is it that you'd like to talk to me about, Lewis?
Nothing in particular. I just wanted to check on you, see if you needed any help or perhaps moral support. I mean, with our dear Mr. Brunswick injured by that crazy cabin boy, you must be quite shocked.
Oh, I am. Thank God Rupert is still alive.
But for how long? Do you know if we can do without his skills?
Rupert has been a dear friend for many years. I know we can't lose him. I can't lose him.
We have a long journey ahead of us, Cornelius, and I am afraid his condition is deteriorating. Will we make it to the colony in time without his proper guidance?
Well, we're lucky that Rupert left his notes. They were enough to determine our course for the moment. If not for that, we would be hopelessly adrift.
I realized that if I acted busy, they might keep talking as if I weren't there, if I dared to keep them waiting.
I know how much you've done for...
I do understand your concern, but I am well aware of the importance of this mission. I could do without you constantly reminding me.
I am not pressuring you, Cornelius, don't worry. I'm only concerned.
And so am I, Lewis. How's your niece doing, by the way? Is she accustomed to life at sea?
I think the sea breeze had her a bit on edge the past few days. She's trying to push my buttons all the time. Sometimes it's hard to admit, but Tabitha frequently reminds me of her aunt. She's got the same feisty way of talking. Quite unladylike, but undeniably charming. Now, this would be the right time to take a sip of that brandy tea you promised me.
Oh, good God. Rensburg, where are you, boy?
Well, it's about time.
Try to be a little faster, Rensburg, please. Now, get yourself to bed. I expect you to bring me my breakfast in the morning.
Devon! Oh, Devon, thank God you are still awake. Everybody is calling me a fool, but you'll believe me, right?
What are you talking about, Rob? Believe what?
The siren! She's back again. I've heard her song, trying to snare me in the darkness. The she-devil wants my soul.
Hold on. Why does she want your soul?
She feeds on human souls, Devon. Don't you read books? She's on the tween deck right now. Please take a look for me, Devon. Prove to the others that I'm not lying.
The music seemed to be coming from somewhere on the tween deck. The bilge pump on the weather deck was used every day. Even in good weather, some water tends to end up below. It looked like somebody had been reading poetry by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I only knew of The Cry of the Children, which was stirring up politics when I left the capital. The bulky buffet trays used aboard the Herald were difficult to carry when filled to the brim with food. I almost dropped one once. I'll never forget the dance I made across the tween deck to retain my balance. The Herald had carried many famous people across the oceans. The guest book could tell me what company I was in. The cups and plates in the saloon had the allure of fine china, but Hayward once jokingly told me he had bought them cheap from Japan, so they probably weren't. There was a painting of a girl in the dining saloon. As cute as the image was, it also made me worry, since I had recently heard rumors about toxins in certain types of makeup. A painting of a chemist showed him experimenting with chemical compounds. I have always been fascinated by science, but my foster parents not so much. They often said university wasn't the right place for me. The image depicted a quite handsome man holding a scroll. There was a painting of a lawyer on the wall. The captain once told me it held an honorary place aboard his ship for very personal reasons. The painting of the zoologist with the sloth always amused me when I walked past it. The painting depicted a man reading from a religious book, probably Jewish. It seemed that many of Lewis's books were about botany and zoology. That is something I hadn't expected to discover about him. He seemed more the religious type to me. The door to the cargo hold had been locked shut when we left the capital. It would only be opened again once we finally reached the eastern colonies.
My first vow is to never bow for the hurt and pain which cannot break me. Fire and flame, thunderstorm or rain, it is not enough to change my views. It's never been so strong, the fear that I don't belong. It's brought me to doing wrong, the fear that I don't belong. Second vow, not to weep about all the ways in which you betrayed me, for I know that I'm wanted, so little reason to stay with you. It's never been so strong, the fear that I don't belong. It's brought me to doing wrong, the fear that I don't belong. Final vow, need to learn somehow to be poised and proud. Please awake me, I did once aim to be someone that inspired those who cared for me. Ugh, terrible. Don't you think so?
I don't agree, miss. I really love to hear you play, but I'm afraid there are others that don't.
Well, this thing is so horribly tuned, it sounds like a drowning cat. Oh, it's you! We haven't been properly introduced yet. I'm Tabitha Vesey. Nice to meet you. Devon Rensburg, was it?
You know my name?
Like I could forget it. I've never seen anyone defy Uncle Lewis's authority like you did. Besides, I've heard all about your heroic actions with the insane boy. That was very brave of you, Devon.
I don't feel like a hero. The boy's locked up now, and I feel sorry for him.
I am sure you did everything you could to protect us from harm. For that, we owe you our deepest gratitude. What was that?
I've no idea.
Strange. When my uncle left for tea with the captain, I could swear I heard a howl of some sort. I figured it was the wind going through the piano, since the cover was partially open when I got here.
You seem distressed. Would it calm you if I took a look between the furniture?
No, please, stay here. I like your company. Quite a lot more than my Uncle Lewis's. Don't get me wrong, but being around him the entire day can be pretty frustrating. He's so imperious and self-indulgent. It drives me mad. I'm sorry, Devon. I just wish I could be self-indulgent too. At least sometimes.
I understand. I'm sorry to hear your uncle is so restrictive.
It's not really fair of me to blame it all on my uncle. We're all going through some rough patches right now. My family, that is. But I shan't bother you with my troubles. Sleep well, Devon Rensburg, and thank you for your company.
The clockmakers from the province of Switzerland are the finest anywhere in the Protectorate. Of course, the senator owned a particularly fancy grandfather clock of Swiss origin. In the corner of the gun deck stood a piano. It was a truly stunning one, made by a Viennese woodworker. Few people owned one of these, even in the capital. A particularly large painting was carefully covered with a blanket. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those tasteful artistic nudes, like the ones my adoptive father often sold to rich upper-class men of a certain age. Even with a blue coat, I wasn't allowed to enter the first-class cabins without a clear invitation by one of the passengers. A large cupboard was among the senator's furniture. I wondered what skeletons it was hiding.
And? Did you find the siren?
You wouldn't believe what I saw. She was real, Rob. Her ghastly stare struck deep into my very soul. And as she beckoned me to come closer, I tried to resist her call. But her sweet embrace, her supple form, oh, and that bosom!
Devon, just stop. Stop making a fool out of me. You didn't touch her. That's impossible.
I'm just playing along with your fantasy. I thought it was a game.
Excuse me, Devon, but that is not my kind of fantasy. You can keep it. Now, good night.
My adoptive mother once told me that a career choice is life's greatest gamble. I would say the dice are rolled earlier, for the conditions of one's birth. The cheapest of liquors is rum, and the Herald carried many barrels of it. A favourite among sailors, it was only allowed to be consumed at 1 tot a day, about 1/8 of an imperial pint. A sack of sand can form an easy counterweight when something large and heavy needs lifting. This part of the cargo hold was strictly off limits while at sea. I was told that if any of the heavy objects inside fell over, you could be crushed to death. It was unusual for a box of indigo to be present on the trip towards the east. Either it had been forgotten, or it had some use in ship maintenance. Because it tends to spoil fast, there's a limited supply of fresh water on a trip to the colonies. But grog, a mixture of water and rum, can be kept fresh for much longer. A locked box could contain literally anything. Sometimes I wondered what secrets some of them carried. Probably just more of the senator's junk, though. Sometimes people get drunk and rowdy, or they just turn out to be criminals. The place on the Herald where these individuals were kept was called the Sometimes people get drunk and even the grinding wheel. You could expect to find something as random. Spare sails hung in the nets above my head. Some were still pristine white, indicating they had never been used. Old soup cans full of nuts, bolts and nails lined the shelves around the mast. As brash a man as Haywood seemed, his violin betrayed his softer side. Looking at Ian's empty bed often made me feel sad for him, being in the cold and damp brig downstairs. It was getting late, so I called it a night.
Psst! Devon! Devon, wake up! You are the only one I can trust with this.
What are you talking about? It's night, Ludlow. Let me go back to sleep, please.
You need to come with me right now. I wouldn't wake you up if it wasn't important.
Ludlow, just tell me what's the matter.
I'll explain in Caleb's workshop. Listen to me, Devon. There is something in the galley. Something that's not supposed to be there.
How do you know that for sure? And what were you doing in the galley anyway? Shouldn't you be on watch at this hour?
I was turning the winch when I heard this faint wailing sound coming from the grate next to it. I had decided it was probably the wind when I suddenly heard it again while I was inspecting the bilge pump. But this time I saw something walk across the 'tween deck too.
What is it that you need me for, specifically? Can't you just check it out yourself?
Devon, I went down there and saw something going into the galley. Sailors aren't supposed to go in there at night, myself included. I woke you up because, as a steward, you are allowed inside. You can go in without getting either of us in trouble. So let's go.
It was too dark to see anything. I needed a lantern.
And? Did you find anything?
It's too dark in there. I can't see anything.
There's a spare lantern in the crew's quarters, but you might need to refill its oil supply.
The shelf contained many bottles of medicine. Boxes big and small were all the soap in the world. All crew carried luggage, some of them There was a lamp in the crew's quarters. I just needed some oil to refill it. Old soup cans full of nuts, there was an oil tin in the drawer. I used it to refill the lamp. The cupboard was a mess. Someone had rummaged through it quite recently and left a trail of crumbs. The cupboard was a mess. An entire drawer was devoted to cutlery. It was such a huge mess that I always dreaded opening it. It was a recipe for Undra's famous butterscotch treats. The crumbs led out of the galley onto the gun deck. The most prominent thing about the galley was its giant stove, 4 burners and 2. The crumbs led out of the galley onto the gun deck. Robert Stockson didn't pay as much as the first-class passengers, and there was no room for him among the crew, so he got The crumbs led to a box among Senator Morton's furniture. I think we have a problem, Ludlow.
Let me see. It's a little girl. But who is she, and what is she doing here? Do you think we should wake her up?
How should I know? I've never seen this girl in my life. Let's ask her where she's from.
No, please don't wake her. She's only just fallen asleep.
Huh? Lady Tabitha? Excuse me, miss, but do you by chance know this girl?
No, I don't, but Well, maybe I do. A little. It was a few nights back. I was stretching my legs when I found her hiding underneath the piano. She was sobbing and I tried to comfort her, but I couldn't really figure out how she got here.
Why not?
Because she doesn't say a word. She's been silent for as long as I've been with her. She likes music. That is all I know.
You knew and you didn't tell me? You lied to me.
Yes, and I'm sorry that I did. I wasn't sure it was a good idea to tell anyone about her. I didn't want to stir something up, not after what had happened with the cabin boy.
You were right not to trust anyone. In my experience, the Protectorate handles stowaways quite harshly. Corporal punishment has only recently been banned for petty crimes, but trespassing, that is still a capital offense.
But they wouldn't beat a girl, would they?
I've seen it happen with boys. Why are girls any different?
Punishment or not, if my uncle found out there was a stowaway on board, it would disgrace the captain. I don't want to be responsible for that.
But what should we do then? She can't stay here. Not in that box.
Can't Officer...
Good idea. She can enjoy a nice warm bed. To think, she must have slept in this box for over a week now.
The girl doesn't know it yet, but I think she's extremely lucky to have met you. Good night, Officer Ludlow. See you at breakfast, Devon.